Welcome on board the Rich Planet Starship, broadcasting from somewhere high above the Earth. I'm Richard D. Hall. The Starship bullshit meter has taken a hammering recently, with more and more propaganda and claptrap being put out by the BBC and others. Starting this time with the head of MI6, John Soares, who made a rare speech, which has not happened for 100 years. In this speech, he mentioned the importance of human rights, which is a bit like George Best lecturing you on how to stay sober. He said, "We get inside terrorist organizations to see where the next threats are coming from. We work to disrupt terrorist plots aimed against the UK and against our friends and allies. What we do is not seen. Few know about the terrorist attacks we help stop." Few know about the terrorist attacks we help stop. Hang on a minute. Surely if they stop a terrorist attack, then they can arrest those terrorists involved and put them on trial in the International Criminal Court. Where are these trials? Where are the guilty terrorists that MI6 helped stop? The answer, of course, is simple. They don't exist because Sir John Soares is a bold-faced liar. I would argue that if we completely got rid of MI5 and MI6, Great Britain would be a much safer place. Because it is these agencies, under the instruction from the US and Israel, who are actually carrying out the terrorist plots in false flag terrorist attacks. No wonder Sir John Soares argues to maintain levels of secrecy. He stated, "Secrecy is not a dirty word. Secrecy is not there as a cover-up. Secrecy plays a crucial part in keeping Britain safe and secure." Really? It is this secrecy that allows them to commit murder against British citizens and also control the media into making people believe the phony, made-up organization called Al-Qaeda, which was dreamt up by Zbigniew Brzezinski and his fellow cronies in America. People are waking up to this con, Mr. Soares, and hopefully one day you will end up on trial in a court for being complicit in false flag operations, such as the one recently reported about explosives being found on a plane coming from Yemen. Until absolute proof is provided that events such as this are being done by alleged terrorists, we must assume they are false flag attacks being carried out by our own agencies, such as the London 7/7 bombings, which have all the hallmarks of an inside MI5 job. Staying on the subject of the 7/7 bombings, the Daily Mail reported recently that the families of 7/7 victims were shown footage of the suicide ringleader pushing a supermarket trolley packed with bomb-making equipment in Asda in Leeds. Mohammed Siddiqui Khan, 30, was caught on CCTV strolling through a branch of Asda the day before the atrocity. He filled the trolley with ice packs used to cool the gang's deadly homemade explosives, the July inquest was told. So buying ice cubes is clear evidence you're going to try and make a deadly bomb. But clearly not for cooling their summertime barbecue drinks, perhaps. It was reported by a French explosives expert who examined the bomb sites that the explosives used were high-grade military explosives, which cannot be made by ingredients bought in Asda. I recently took a trip myself to the local supermarket to see if the official story had any credence at all, just to check whether or not supermarkets actually stock bomb-making ingredients on their shelves. Unfortunately, when we filmed in Asda, we were challenged by the staff and asked to remove the footage. I said, "No, I'm not going to remove the footage." They said, "Well, we're going to call the police." I said, "Fine, would you like my name and address to give to the police so they can come round and talk to me?" I then proceeded to walk out the store, and then one of the staff said to me, "You're going nowhere." And I said, "Really?" And I just walked out of the store. They then came and got my car registration number, and then they phoned the police. I later got a call from the police asking me whether I was going to use the footage. I said no, and I said I would be happy to delete the footage because I wasn't sure whether it was legal or not, but I've deleted the footage nonetheless. The police officer has informed me that Asda are writing to me, banning me from their store. Last week, I interviewed researcher Miles Johnston. Last year, Miles travelled to Norway to interview Dr. RAUNI KILDE, who was the Chief Medical Officer of Finland. RAUNI has written several best-selling books covering UFOs, out-of-body experiences, and mind control. Miles has very kindly allowed us to screen his work on the Starship, and what follows is the first half of the RAUNI KILDE interview.
We joined RAUNI in her home in Sund in southern Norway.
About my last book, the fifth book, about Our Secret Worlds. And it tells about my experiences in the paranormal, military reports of UFOs, and finished positive contacts with humanoids. Mind control technology affecting our consciousness, and microchips and the planned future for mankind. I had this this lecture in Charlottesville in Virginia in April. And it says here, she's a Finnish best-selling author living in Norway, retired chief medical officer of North Finland, Lapland, with 3 medical specialities. Her biography is in American Who is Who in the World, Who is Who in Medicine and Healthcare, Who is Who in Science and Engineering. She's the first doctor to have published near-death experiences of children in '82 in the international bestseller There Is No Death. This book is in 6 languages.
And you have a copy here?
I have many copies. I mean, in different languages.
Can
This
you
is my
explain
last.
What about this individual being here?
This.
What
Who
was-
am I? Who am I? I got it from
That photograph, can you show any further light on that photograph?
Yeah.
Which first appeared in Aviation Week in Space Technology, is that correct?
possible. I got this from a NATO officer and got permission to have it on my book.
Precisely.
I was in '91 in Moscow in a UFO conference, which was opened by General Popovich, Pavel Popovich, who is a cosmonaut. And the chairman of the conference was Dr. Ashasa, and I had no idea that he was the chief of Soviet Navy's intelligence. And there were 400 people attending, pilots, test pilots, officers, and general public. It was open for anybody. And from the States, there were 3 people, Dr. Psychiatrist Rima Leibov, an American journalist, Victoria, who is now married to Colonel John Alexander, and then there was U.S. Army's intelligence chief,
Alexander being instrumental in remote viewing and,
Yes,
and
right.
Cywar.
Right, but then it was General Albert Stubbletine. So that kind of public for a UFO conference. And the lecturers were from Soviet Academy of Sciences, and of course pilots and radar pictures and all that. So on that level, anybody could come and listen to them. I thought that was flabbergasting. If you think of Scandinavia, you know, it's ridiculed, and the highest officers would never say a word about UFOs, officially. And this is what was done. And now, in April, I was in the States, and the same thing happened. I mean, it was the highest military. There were colonels, Colonel John Alexander. I wrote even a 6-page article in the Finnish magazine Ultra, which is our esoteric magazine about UFOs, over 30 years old. And the title was, "It's not about the lights in the sky, but the lies on the ground." And can you imagine? Colonel Alexander was there. There was Edgar Mitchell.
He's of course come out with recent statements.
He came out from this conference with the statesmen all over the world. And then there was Richard Doyland, a very known historian. You may have heard about him. He talked about sort of a cultural schizophrenia when it concerns UFO question. And Colonel Jones, Scott Jones, is also a doctor. They were all doctors. They all had PhDs on that level. And he was saying that maybe in 2 years they are hoping that, you know, the field opens officially. And
Why?
he mentioned...
What's the background to that?
Well, he was saying that now there's enough evidence, military evidence, which they can show. And he was mentioning that Norway could be one of the candidate countries where things come out. We'll see.
What's the connection with Norway specifically that they would want to do that?
I don't know. He didn't mention that, but I thought Norway is a NATO country. And Norway is very much involved with American military. So that could be that they don't want US to announce it. So who do they come to an ally, maybe.
Yeah.
But I have no idea.
Do you
if
think there's
this
an
will-
ET facility within Norway? At
I
the
can't
US?
say, but I do know that they have a lot of mountains in Norway, and they have military involvements inside the mountains.
And we have one of the largest HARP type transmission systems
That's
in
right.
Norway.
That's right. It's in outside of Tromsø, the biggest HARP type of thing, part of ASCAT system.
What's that exactly?
ASCAT system is the system going from Tromsø, first Svalbard, Tromsø, Kiruna in Sweden has the headquarters of the whole system, and then in Lapland, in Finnish Lapland, in Sodankylä. And you know, when they blast electromagnetic fields, so it goes through all of Europe.
And do you think that's a form of mind control?
Oh, it can be used for mind control, of course, like HARP. And that is the danger, because people know nothing about mind control. They don't know that your thoughts can be changed, your attitudes, your feelings. If you love somebody, somebody sitting at a computer, even through satellites, can say, okay, let's make it opposite. And you start just detesting the person who you love. You can't be in the same room, you know, you feel uncomfortable. I think this is terrible, because you're making people into biological robots.
Yeah.
And then these school shootings, we've had 2 times now in
Yeah.
Finland. For me, it was totally clear it's mind control.
In the UK, we had Dunblane, and also we had Hungerford in the
Yeah.
United Kingdom.
It's clear. It's totally clear. They pick out young men who have troubles, maybe psychological troubles, because that's a good camouflage. And then they start beaming a frequency of hate, hate. And all of a sudden, you know, a normal man, young man, becomes just a monster and shoots school children, teachers, whatever, and then it's Delta programming, shoots himself.
Yeah,
Because then you can't.
There's no evidence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's no evidence. The same thing happened in Nepal. You know, when the crown prince shot the whole family, the king and the queen and all the sisters and brothers and cousins. And always there's one question: who benefits?
Yeah.
Who benefits? The brother of the king was out of town, became king. Now he's out, which is good. But who benefits about the school shootings? If you think of Finland, in European Union, Finland was the only country who voted against restriction of guns.
Of guns, yeah.
And we are 3rd in the world in statistics, because we only have 5 million people. 3rd in the world having more guns than anybody else, because they are mostly for hunting. Okay, we said no, we don't want restrictions, because our people hunt. And since Finland says no, of course in EU it is no. Then came the school shooting. Then our Prime Minister said, well, we will make some arrangements. But that wasn't enough. Then came the second school shooting, 1 year after. Then he said, now we will restrict. So it's always a political reason. And in the first school shooting, NATO's Secretary General came next day on a visit to Finland. They're trying to push us into NATO for various reasons. 1,700 kilometers common border against Russia. I mean, you can build a lot of shields, right? Well, actually it started when I was 15 years old. I went into parapsychology because I had a relative who said in 3 previous lives I've been married to my husband who was a medical doctor. And I said, what? 3 previous lives? We only have 1 life. I was innocent and I didn't know. But I got interested. I started reading anything in the 50s that Finland had in the libraries. And then when I became Chief Medical Officer of Lapland in '75, I joined a meditation group. And yes, I started reading anything that in Finland you could find in the libraries. And in 1975, when I had read enough, I thought, I joined a meditation group when I became Chief Medical Officer of Lapland in Rovaniemi at the Polar Circle in north of Finland. And there I became an automatic writer. I sat there in the group for 3 years. Nothing happened to me, but everybody else seemed to develop. But I felt like I would have had a spiritual sauna. You know, I went there tired after the work, and I came, out just vibrating. Until one day, we were meditating, my hand went out and started doing the figure 8. I couldn't understand, so I tried to get it down. I couldn't. There was a force. And I took the other hand and I tried to put it down. It didn't go. And then I thought, this is automatic writing, sign of eternity. And I said in my thoughts, write into the air. What happened? My hand stopped and started writing into the air block letters, S-O-L-V-E-I-G, Solveig, and it dropped. And that was the name of my relative who had died 2 months previously, who, when I was 15 years old, said, in 3 previous lives I've been married to my husband. I was shocked. And then after the next week, I took a pen and a pencil. I thought, if this happens again, and sure enough, my hand started going. So I said, go and write. I had pen and a pencil. And it wrote the whole name, Solveig, with the last name, I am alive. I mean, come on, she had died 2 months before. And I thought, this is weird. Next time, the same thing happened, and then it was religious text. God is love, and I'm not religious. Maybe a little bit spiritual, but not religious. And I thought, what is this? So what's going on? You're going to write a book that's called There Is No Death. And I thought, what is this, you know? And then also, you're going to Malaysia. Now, I didn't even know where Malaysia was. Why would I go to Malaysia? And I thought this was weird. Anyway, 2 weeks went and I was at a meeting in Helsinki for the National Board of Health. They came into the lecture room and they said, Dr. Lukanen, the Finnish Red Cross is calling. They want you to come to the telephone. And I went and they said, look, we need a medical advisor immediately. Can you leave for Malaysia?
After the break, RAUNI talks about her international best-selling book, There Is No Death, which was written in 24 hours using automatic writing. This is where the writer appears to receive the information from an outside source, which takes control of their hand, causing them to write out the script, without them consciously knowing what is being written. In this section, RAUNI tells us about her first book, There Is No Death. She talks about mind control and how the CIA tried to classify belief in UFOs as a sign of mental illness, which was opposed by European countries such as Finland.
You know, I just